feel like we were just here. What was it, about a month ago? After the whole George Floyd situation happened, we saw the protesting.
Might have been two.
Might have been too much, right?
June.
Yeah, June time frame. Let's see, we had people protesting. That was the big conversation then. There were no sports taking place at the time, but, just NASCAR, they were big in terms of keeping the conversation moving and things like that. And we thought that, change was happening. We were saying, just overall, it was a lot more conversation being had about the racial injustice, the social injustice and things like that, or racial inequality and things on that nature. But here we go. We find ourselves back here again. And shout out to the NBA, WNBA, MLB. Well, some of these things in MLB, but they really helped bring this conversation back up. Just the other day, Jacob Blake was shot 7 times in the back, unarmed. Ultimately probably be paralyzed from that situation in Kenosha. I think I said that right. Yeah, Kenosha, Wisconsin. And I mean, it's crazy because once again, we're talking about these same conversations in terms of officers, using lethal force when alternative methods are there, whether it's tasing, whether it's restraining him. It was multiple police officers there and things like that. But the Milwaukee Bucks, they took the first stand and ultimately boycotted the playoff game, which was huge. I mean, at the time, because no one knew they were going to do it. There were rumblings about, I think it was the Celtics and the Raptors were potentially talking about.
It seemed like they were talking about it first.
Yeah, they were talking about potentially not playing the game, but they really didn't give a lot of detail on it. But the thing I like about the Bucks, though, man, number one, they took the onus upon themselves. They didn't communicate with anyone else in the league. In fact, you see the videos of the Orlando Magic. They're on the court warming up, getting ready for that game. I didn't
see that. Yeah.
Yeah. So and actually, it just happened while we were on the radio. So we were actually watching it live, and you see the Magic out there warming up. They're going through shoot around, and the Bucks are nowhere to be found. Then it's supposed to be game time. The Bucks nowhere to be found, and then they let the people know that, hey, man, they're not going to be playing. They're boycotting the game, and they wanted to make it a boycott. Because you see the wording now from a national media standpoint is, the NBA has postponed it. The NBA has postponed this series. And they wanted to make it clear that a postponement would be if the NBA was just acknowledging what was happening and saying, hey, we're not going to play games today. That wasn't the case. Those games were scheduled to be played. Everything was supposed to go on like nothing happened. Like we said.
It started with saying boycott, though. You're saying the day went on yesterday?
It did not start with saying the players started it by saying it's a boycott. The NBA and the national media have changed the words to postponement.
No, that's what I mean. Whenever I think you first sent me the article, and whenever I first saw it, whenever it was initially happening, all I was seeing was boycott. Yes. But I think you're right. Like as the day went on, like later in the night, you were seeing like NBA postpone today's games.
Right, and postponement holds a different weight than boycott. Boycotting is when you're saying, hey, look, I'm fed up with this. I'm not about to stand here and think that this is acceptable. I don't want you to think it's acceptable. And the platform that they have, which is a playoff game, which is going to be a closeout game, they're leading the series 3-1. It's an important game to be a part of to end that series. They said, no, we are not going to play. We don't care about the ramifications. And shout out to the Orlando Magic, because then the next wave was, well, since the Bucks want to boycott the game, they should be forfeiting the game. The Orlando Magic said they don't want the forfeit. They said we're going to boycott too. They don't give us anything. We don't want that, which I thought was very respectable for them. And I thought that it showed the solidarity and supported the movement, because it was going to be easy to change the narrative to, well, now they look dumb because they just lost a game for no reason type situation. So I was very proud of them in that regard. And then with the WNBA, I just see me rocking their hoodie and things like that. Man, I thought it was awesome to see their teams, because they had 3 games slated yesterday as well, and to see them boycotted. Because let's be real, the NBA, no matter how much people talk about they're not watching the NBA, no matter, I mean, even when I said like the product at the time, we said sometimes it feels real summer league-ish, we're still tuned in because the NBA, right? With the WNBA, it's the opposite. Their viewership doesn't reach the same level of NBA players. So for them, you're thinking about, man, they got the opportunity to be the only sport team playing at the time. That would be a lot of attention for them, but they decided that, hey, man, this is bigger than their game as well. So I was like, definitely want to applaud them for that. But ultimately, man, it's just crazy to think that this is still, I lie to myself saying this is crazy to think. It's not crazy to think. It's the reality. But hopefully when this thing keeps happening and people keep standing up, keep protesting, keep boycotting, keeping the conversation going, change can continue to happen. I mean, I was telling you a little bit off the mic that this is one of those things, man, we said this, like you said 2 months ago, like it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to just change and everybody's going to be great and we're going to be singing Kumbaya. No, it's going to take time. We didn't get here overnight. We're not going to leave here overnight. But the thing is, we have to continue to fight. We have to continue to stay motivated through it all and continue to keep pressing forward.
Yeah, I think probably the answer, I mean, really is, love and respect on, like I was thinking this coming over, just love and respect on any side with all of this in terms of, you seeing the NBA players doing the boycott, it's like, all right, this is happening for a reason. Like, I don't think this was taken lightly. And, I'm big on like, all right, live and let live. Like, I'm big on like freedom of choice and everything. Like, these guys had the power and the leverage to do this. And if they really felt like in their hearts, like, yo, this is going to impact society, this is going to help make the change required, then like more power to you. Like, you can do whatever you want, especially if you have that power and leverage. And you could say, with the Bucks, even yesterday, they got to talk to the governor of Wisconsin.
Yes, the attorney general.
So, like, that doesn't happen if the boycott from yesterday is not taking place. So that's, no matter what you want to say about it, like, stuff happened yesterday.
Yes.
And I guess a different conversation is, like, whether or not the NBA should continue or not. But, like, I don't think that really needs to be a conversation right now. You know what I mean? Because we'll see what happens the rest of the week. And, like, we're going to be off next week anyway. So we'll see what the whole the landscape of that is. But yeah, I don't know. I just think I don't know. I just think love and respect and just try to understand and listen. Like, this is all the stuff we've been talking about because no one's gonna necessarily agree on everything. But I think if we treat each other and talk to each other and have dialogue in a respectful manner, and the baseline of all of it's like, yo, we want society to improve. We want everything to get better. Like, I think that's what things should be about. You know what I mean? And this, and like you said, like this happening yesterday is bringing up conversations of and pause and reflection, whatever it is. So hopefully, I don't know, just hopefully it all keeps going that way. And it's all good with me.
Yeah, man. I think it's going to be a unique situation as things progresses. And I'm glad what you said too about the conversation about whether or not the playoffs from an NBA standpoint should continue on. That's going to have its time. They're having meetings about that today. They're going to work that situation out, whichever they think is best. Because remember, prior to the season, the bubble season starting, Kyrie Irving was a part of a group, remember, that was talking about, hey, maybe we shouldn't go play because that's going to kind of water down what's going on and take away, which it did. We talked about how there were still protests going on, but because remember the whole rioting narrative that initially started, because there was no more of that, you weren't hearing people talk about the protesting anymore. You weren't hearing people talk about the forefront of the George Floyd killing and everything that was transpiring with that. You weren't hearing about any of that because sports was back resumed and everybody took it as life is normal. Even when Jacob Blake got shot 7 times, the video had been surfaced and there were still games being played for a couple of days after it happened. And it was not a headline. It was not talked about on that level, but it took these players boycotting. It took other leagues joining on board to show that, hey, as we see, this is no different than with the COVID situation, right? When sports says it's important, everybody around it reacts to it, right? Because beforehand, when we talk about the COVID situation, it was over in Wuhan, right? Nobody was really talking about it from an American standpoint. But when March Madness got canceled, when all the sports that were about to happen, whether it was NBA that was going on, NHL and all that, when everything stopped from a sports standpoint, that's when all of us as a nation said, oh man, this is serious. Okay, we need to figure this thing out, right? Then we think about when sports came back. Then it was like, all right, everything's back good again. Sports stops because of this. Now it's like, okay, we got everybody's attention again. It's crazy how we always, and not all of us, but a lot of people from a fan standpoint will say, hey, we don't want politics in sports. We don't want to hear athletes' opinions on sports. But it seems as if they don't notice anything that's going on until the athlete speaks up and says something. And that's a part of the problem. I mean, you have to be aware of what's going on from a global standpoint, from even just a domestic standpoint right here in our own country. It's not acceptable. And the thing that really bothers me is we talk about how even back when Kaepernick took the knee, right? How they try to change the narrative. So now the new thing is, well, what about his criminal record, man? His criminal record, he's not some innocent guy. That's the whole purpose of due process. That's the whole purpose of a fair trial. That's in your Constitution, right? So I don't care what he did prior to that. I don't care what he did right then in the moment. At the end of the day, the job of the police officers are to protect and serve, not to be judge, jury, and executioner. So we have to understand that part of it first before we can even get to everything else. it's just, we see it so often when it comes to these scenarios. You go on your social media right now, I guarantee it doesn't take 2 seconds to find the person that wants to change the narrative, that wants to go from, oh, well, his criminal record to, well, what about black on black crime? What about this on this? What about that on that? All these other, in sports, we talk about moving the goalposts when we're having a debate, right? When it comes to this type of stuff, people are quick to move the goalposts because they don't want to face what's really in front of them. And it's very disheartening. It's very frustrating. But that's the biggest reason why me and a lot of other just media people aren't allowing that narrative to be changed. You're in this as well. That's why I like you. You know what I'm saying? Because you're a good dude, baby. Because it'll be easy to come in here and say, well, you know, we can avoid this conversation or we'll just keep it short and light. But no, because we've done that for so long and you've seen that method has not worked. We've seen very prominent people talk about, well, man, protesting doesn't work. What's the point in protesting? Nothing's going to happen. Think about the civil rights movement. Protesting was the biggest part of why change happened. And let's be real, if protesting and boycotting and bringing it up and constantly talk about it and hitting it in your face until you can't stand it anymore, if people aren't doing that, no change is going to happen, because it's not like, oh yeah, y'all just going to wake up one day. And when I say y'all, I'm talking about the majority. I'm talking about the Caucasians, right? The non-minority population in America. It's not as if they're just going to wake up one day and say, you know what? Hey, equal rights for everybody. Don't worry about it, man. You get good, man. Hey, if you get killed, man, we got your back and all this other stuff, because that hasn't happened. It's been decades. It's been numerous generations that have transpired and had to live through this. And yeah, I'm just glad that this generation is saying we're fed up with it. That's the one beauty of 2020. I feel like, man, we always joke about 2020 being a bad year. We talk about the COVID situation, how it was just rough, Kobe passing away, man, all these bad things. But the one thing I can say about 2020, man, from a political standpoint, as a nation, man, like, just people are standing up. People are not just allowing the same status quo to continue. And that's the thing that I love the most about this.
Yeah. And like I was saying with what I was saying and what I've said in the past too, and what I've said even off the mic, like, yo, I'm here to listen, here to understand, have the conversation, dialogue, and try to get where, you're coming from, and people are coming from with this, where I might have a blind spot just with how I was raised, and I don't understand, and I'm here, and we've talked about this. I think the thing that's weird is because of the status we're in terms of the COVID stuff, but like, even off the mic, I was like the first person to tell you, like, bro, like, how do we like do something? Right. Can we get into these communities, do certain things? But like I said with the COVID shit, like, it's. And yeah, that's what I'm me. I'm more or less about the action, trying to go do some stuff. So, I think there's stuff heading in the right direction. And like you said, with 2020, maybe if some of this stuff hasn't happened, I don't know. Do I have that conversation with you? Do I say with you, like, yo, let's do whatever. Let's go try to do something. Yeah.
And the thing that I applaud you for is the listening element of it, right? You're talking about how, hey, you don't understand every experience that I've experienced. A lot of people, though, that aren't minorities, they try to say, well, it can't be that bad, or I've done this before. Oh, this happened to me. And it's different. I mean, some of my experiences, I've talked about how, hey, you've never had to hear the talk of, hey, if a police officer is approaching you in your car, these are the things you need to do. You don't have to worry about that. We've also talked about how, hey, you've never been pulled over for driving while being black or driving while being white. We hear that all the time. Oh, you fit the description, or I've been pulled over in the NFL. And they tell me, well, hey, man, you look too nice to have this car. What do you do? like, please explain this to me.
Yeah.
That to me is an issue. And that's just a small scenario. We've talked about other things that have happened, and that's just my story, not even talking about the countless other people who've had that, or the people who've been unfortunate who didn't have the luxury of being able to say, well, hey, I play in the NFL. That's what's going on. And then the demeanor changes from, well, why are you driving this car, being African-American, young guy on top of that, to, can I get a picture and an autograph? Those were the things that I had as a luxury where other people didn't. But at the end of the day, that is not right. That's not right at all. I mean, if that would happen to you, you would look at the officer like, you're crazy. Like, what do you mean I can't have this car? Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, and that's the type of stuff, man. Or like you said, with the black on black crime, which to me is absolute nonsense, but people quick to bring that up. Man, black on black crime, white on white crime, black on white crime. The difference with all of those little narratives that people want to bring up, the difference with all of the goalpost movement that people want to bring up is this: when it's civilian on civilian crime, where there's black initiated, white initiated, whatever it may be, those people get held accountable. Those people get arrested. Those people go to trial. If the punishment fits, the death penalty is there in some cases. It's fair. That's the purpose of it, right? Due process, speedy trial. You get all of that. It's in the Constitution, see Miranda rights. And in fact, now that I think about it, but when it comes to police officers who we say are held to a higher standard because they do have the option of using lethal force at times. That's why they carry a gun. That's why it's legal for them to do some of the things they do. When they aren't acting in accordance with the law, they're not held to the same standard. We talked about how with the George Floyd situation, if it wasn't for the nationwide protesting and rioting and looting, those officers were not going to get arrested. We saw that firsthand because initially they said they weren't going to arrest them. So that's why everybody started to protest and go crazy. We talk about Breonna Taylor. That's a name that the WNBA has been huge on in terms of any women that have been wrongfully killed by police officers and not having a voice for them. We talked about how that whole situation happened, the details of it, and those officers are still out walking free, not a care in the world. That is a issue. That's an issue. She didn't have a criminal record. We can go down the list. You talk, criminal record, no criminal record. I don't have a criminal record. I've been pulled over numerous times by police. And I told you about this scenario. Driving while black. Why do you have that car? You shouldn't have that. Who are you? What do you do? That's the issue. And it has to change, man. And it's not going to change if we don't talk about it. It's not going to change if we don't understand the importance of voter registration and understanding that, hey, you have to look at the different people who are in office, look at the different people who are in the positions of power, see what their policies are and get the right people in. But if you're not registered to vote, you can't do that. I'm just saying as an action item, right? That's one action item. We talked about in a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, we talked about how we could get in the community and do certain things from a police and community relations standpoint, improving that conversation and that dynamic between the two of them. We talk about police training. That has to be another big issue. Those are all the things that have to be at the forefront, that have to be talked about and have to be addressed. I understand defunding the police. People use it as a hot topic, hot term, and there are a lot of variables that go into that, and it's a lot of details that go into that. That is another avenue, but ultimately for me, man, just finding out the way to just communicate with the police officers about the training element of it, right? You don't have to use lethal force all the time. And the thing that really blows my mind is when people hit you with well, not all police are bad, which I do agree, because like I said, I have family members that are great police officers. But it gets tiring when all the bad officers seem to be involved with African-American situations, right? But then when you see the scenarios where a 17-year-old Caucasian individual who just shot 2 people and killed them with the AR-15 gets taken into custody with no problem. You see countless videos of Caucasian Americans running up against police, resisting arrest, using deadly force, having a knife and attacking the police, still gets arrested, no problem. Why is it that when it's African American, if he moves the wrong way, if he just bulks back and says, no, I don't want to be arrested, that gives the officer the right to shoot, to kill him. But if it's a Caucasian individual with weapons that they have just used, which has been documented numerous times, oh no, that's acceptable. That's just a great cop. It can't be that wishy-washy. It can't be that night and day. It has to be consistency when we're talking about the police officers and how they handle individuals. And until it is, it's going to continue to be an issue, and it's going to continue to be something that we talk about. Yeah.
Oh, that's I was gonna say, do you have anything else on it? But yeah, I think you laid it out there, man. Yeah, and like I said, I'm here to listen. I'm here to have the conversation. And yeah, even if we disagree on certain things, it goes back to what I was saying about just the respect factor and hearing things out and being like, yo, I'm not always right. I do have blind spots. I may not understand things. So I wanna hear these things. And the baseline of we're trying to get this shit better. I think that's what we can all come together for sure.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm glad I get to have these conversations with you, man.
Dude, I'm all right, man. I'm overrated.
And I think it's important too that we use the platform that we have, man. If we just come up here and we just strictly talk sports and act as if nothing is going on, it's tone deaf, bro.
There's two things. Yeah, it's going on in sports, and we've talked about other like COVID even. Mm-hmm. It's weird though. Going back to what you were saying about sports and all these other avenues of life, like sports is intertwined in a lot of it.
It is
business, politics, whatever, technology.
You think about some of the biggest political moments have happened around sports. You think about Ali saying, "Hey, I'm not going to go to Vietnam to fight," forfeiting or turning over the heavyweight title at the time. That's a major political statement that happened with sports. You think about the Olympics where you saw the guys on the podium putting up the black fist in the air and things like that. Like, that's big. Those are iconic moments that happen in sports that are very much political. it's numerous examples of those situations and scenarios. So the whole narrative of keep politics out of sports, that's not realistic because they are very much intertwined. The athletes are very much in their communities. We talked about how even when I play, like, and even now, still heavily involved in the community. It's all intertwined, man. It's all intertwined. And regardless of if you want to call it a political thing or not, at the end of the day, the root of it all is just the value of human life. There's nothing political about me valuing your life, Deke. There's nothing political about you valuing my life. That's not a political issue. That's just basic fundamentals of just life in general. And until we can understand that as a whole, until we can all come together and get that, this is going to continue to happen. These conversations are going to continue to happen. And eventually something's going to happen where it comes to a head, man, for better or worse. So we got to continue to get this thing better, man.
Yeah. Yeah. And we talked about, on the one podcast we were doing a couple months ago, and then even throughout this one, it rolls. Yes. It's not an overnight thing, but is yesterday or what the NBA is doing or just everything that has happened, is that some steps in the right direction? We're hoping so. So yeah,
absolutely, man, absolutely.